I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, can I cover a bunch of topics here? Let's call this a viewer mailbag. I always get lots of questions on my YouTube channel. Some of them I'll just make little notes of, and I figure I'll address it in a blog that I do every quarter here. So let me answer some of the questions I've had recently. Had a guy, he said, you know, Owen, you're always suggesting you max out your Rrsp and Tfsa before you buy an investment property. Yeah, why do you do that? Well, there's no hard or fast rule. My system or my stages here, as you guys know, is first step should be to buy your principal residence. That's always number one. Buy your principal residence first. Then max out your Rrsp and Tfsa because you're getting those tax advantages there. You're going to get the principal resident exemption on your principal residence. The next best tax advantages, and you got to use everything they give us here. They don't give us much. Would be the Rrsp and Tfsa. You're going to get that deduction going in on the Rrsp, which is incredible. If you put $30,000 in, you can deduct it off your working income. All the growth is tax sheltered until you cash it out. Then you will be taxed on it. But I won't be, but you may be in a lower tax bracket at that point. That's the goal for most people. But the Tfsa, you don't get the deduction going in, but it's all tax-free growth, and it's fully tax-free when you pull it out. So that's where you want, as I've said before, you want your growth names, your Amazons and your Apples and your Netflix and Googles. Probably don't pay you a dividend, but it's that unlimited growth that you can put in there, your 10 baggers. Then I've often said an investment property might be right for you. Take out the leverage, borrow, put down 20%, borrow the other 80%, which is going to supercharge your return. But I just, you don't have to do it that way. This is just my kind of philosophies because I want diversification. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. Principal residence, get a good handle on your retirement funds, and then perhaps buy an investment property. There's pros and cons to both, but it's all about diversification. Brings me to the second question, similar vein here. A guy was asking, he was asking about leverage. What about buying a bigger principal residence? That would essentially take advantage of more leverage. It would also allow you to shelter the gain if it's your principal residence. Would this be a good way to go? Absolutely. Yes. Now, again, don't over leverage. Don't buy more home than you need or your family needs. Don't overcommit yourself to a home that you can't afford, especially when interest rates go up. But yes, from my personal standpoint, my most expensive piece of property has always been my principal residence. There's a little bit of gaps in here and there where I've sold my principal residence and I'm moved into one of my other homes temporarily until I find another house. But for the most part, yes, I'm living in, the most expensive home that I have in my portfolio is my principal residence. Exactly like you say, you're taking advantage of the leverage, you're borrowing at, 1.2 or 1.3%. And then, of course, all the gain is completely tax-free when you sell it, at least for now. Hopefully they keep the principal residence exemption. So absolutely, as long as you're not overcommitting yourself, don't buy more home than you need. But for sure, principal residence, that's why I always recommend it should be your first step. And your most expensive property should be your principal residence to take advantage of that. Do I own any bond ETFs? No, I do not, thank God. I've talked about this many times. I have never owned a bond fund in my life, and I don't need to. Because from the beginning, have tried, and I've talked about this, I talk about it in my book, my goal has always been to bulletproof my retirement. And by that, I mean, it's to build up a big enough portfolio, a stock portfolio, as well as a real estate portfolio, that I can comfortably live off the cash flows. I can live off the dividends that it pays to me in my equity portfolio. And I'm also collecting the rent checks from my tenants, is what we call the crossover point. In my book, I talk about it. I hit it in my early 40s. Where the passive income my stocks and real estate portfolio are providing me, I could easily quit my day job as a realtor, which I don't want to do because I still love the work, but I could comfortably live off my passive income. And comfortably, I could still travel, take lots of vacations, drive a nice car, not have to worry about money whatsoever, 6-figure income and well above. So bonds and fixed income and term deposits and GICs, it's really a self-fulfilling prophecy. People have to get into those vehicles, unfortunately, because they need to preserve the capital that they do have. My goal has always been to think big. Try and create a portfolio that's big enough so you don't have to go into bonds. A bond ETF, paying you 1.5%, inflation's running at 3.5%, and it's not tax efficient. So yeah, I do not own any bonds. I will never own any bonds. Well, I shouldn't say that. Unless interest rates spiked up to 7 or 8 or 9%, then I might be enticed to buy some bonds. But I don't think we're going to see that in my lifetime. I'd rather own the Bell Canada that's paying me 6% dividend as opposed to a 1% bond yield. So no, I don't. But I've talked about it in other video blogs. People unfortunately have to be there. Just like I do not have an emergency fund. I haven't had an emergency fund for over 10 years. I've got a big enough portfolio now that I don't need to. But most people, and up until 10 or 12 years ago, I did. I kept some money in a bank account or in a high interest account or in some 30-day term deposits, earning me 1 or 2%. I hated it. But you wanted that money as an emergency fund. If the roof was damaged in a windstorm and you needed $10,000 to fix your roof, you got to have that money accessible. But eventually you get to a point where you get a big enough portfolio, a big enough net worth, which is what you should all strive for, that now, if my roof gets damaged and I need 15 grand for a new roof, I'll just sell $15,000 worth of XIC or XEI or Bell Canada or Royal Bank. No problem. I can put a sell order in and have that cash within 3 working days. And in the meantime, I'm collecting, a 4, 4.5, 5% dividend plus the long-term capital gains, which is going to blow away, what you're getting in a bank account or a checking account or even a term deposit as an emergency fund. Investing versus saving. A guy brought up an interesting point here. I always talk about investing, and it goes back to this emergency fund here. People get confused about saving for retirement and investing for retirement. Saving is, what a lot of people have to do would be to save for an emergency fund. You want to put that money into something that's accessible, or saving for the down payment on a house. If you're going to look to buy a house in the next couple of years, then you should be saving that money. Put it into a term deposit or a high interest savings account or just a checking account. You're not going to earn the interest anyway, so just put it in a coffee can for that matter. You're going to lose money on it every year because inflation is eroding away on it. But that's not the point. The point is you need that money in 2 or 3 years to buy a house or buy a car or as an emergency fund. It's accessible. But that's where that ends. If you want to save for retirement and create any type of financial independence or wealth or retire early, like this guy pointed out in my video blog here, you have to invest it. And so many people get confused with the two. You are not going to save your way to retirement. You won't have a chance because you're going to earn 1% and inflation's running at 3%. Plus, in a lot of these fixed income and interest-bearing vehicles, they're not tax efficient. They're taxed at your full marginal rates. Instead, you want to be investing. You want to get your money working for you. The 2 best ways are through real estate and through equities. Real estate, take advantage of the leverage, borrow 80%, put a tenant in it, or buy your principal residence, enjoy it, live in it, pay down the principal at 1.2%, and when you sell it, it's all tax-free. Or invest your money, get it into companies like Johnson & Johnson and Amazon and Bell Canada and the Canadian banks, many of which are going to pay you a handsome dividend, which is going to be 5 or 6 times what you're going to get in an interest account, savings account. Plus, you're going to have that long-term capital gain over time. Not every year. Bell Canada, I kind of rely on the 5.5% dividend. Plus, I don't know, I'm not too optimistic. I figure, hey, maybe I'll get another 1.5 or 2%, annualized in capital gain over the years. Not every year, but over 10 years, I might eke out another 2% or 3%. So now that gives you a total of 8 or 9% return. That's tenfold what you're getting in an interest account. So saving for a car, saving for a down payment, saving for an emergency fund, fine. But that's not investing, and you are not going to get anywhere as far as retirement unless you get your money working for you. So I think that kind of answers some of the questions. I had some other people ask me about detached versus condo. I've done this blog a number of times. Condos are fantastic. They're going to appreciate. Are they going to appreciate as much as a detached house with the dirt? No, because it's the dirt that appreciates. Condos are also a lifestyle purchase. I've lived in detached homes. I've lived in large detached homes and loved it. Now I'm at a stage where the capital gain or the appreciation isn't top of mind for me and my wife. Now I want lifestyle. I want a modern place right in the heart of the city that I can walk to things. So there's pros and cons to both. Go back and watch some of my blogs comparing detached to a condo. But detached market continues to be very strong, especially when you could buy a detached home with a couple of rental suites or a laneway house. That is a very sweet package. But you're going to need, even on the east side now, Vancouver, you're going to need now 2.3, 2.4 for a decent house like that we're selling at probably 1.8 or 1.9 2 years ago. So it's a pretty big jump up. Finally, I'll just leave you with quickly here. I saw an article in the in the Wall Street Journal, which I'm always reading. And again, this goes back to the blog I was talking about learning the basics of how to manage your money, invest your money, save for retirement. You have to spend that 100 hours, 150 hours. Start with a book like mine, Along for the Ride. That'll be a good introduction to you to open your eyes to what I'm talking about here in my blog. But, I see these articles all the time. They had a study here. This was a poll. This was in the Wall Street Journal, August 31st. A poll from the U.S. Government Accounts Office. And they polled something like 10,000 Americans and asked, do you know what you pay? Do you pay any fees in your 401k? And 41% said no. 23% said, I don't know. So, 65% either thought no or they have no idea what kind of fees, if any, they're paying in their 401k. Well, I've got news for you. If you've got a 401k plan, you are paying through the nose. You are getting killed. They are gouging you, as Jack Bogle would say, from the late founder of Vanguard. And then 81%, when they were told, yeah, you're paying fees in there, 81% had no idea what those fees. Not surprising, doesn't surprise me. This is what the financial industry, what the mutual fund industry, financial planners in a lot of cases, it's that dirty secret they don't want you to know. Goes back to that blog I've talked about here that on PBS Frontline, the award-winning documentary called The Retirement Gamble. Watch that blog, that documentary. That interview with Jack Bogle, the late great founder of Vanguard, where the reporter had his 401k. He was in a bunch of lame mutual funds that his employer was providing him. His management expense ratio was something like 1.5%, which doesn't sound like much, and he didn't think it was that much either. Then he did the homework on it, went and interviewed Jack Bogle. That 1.5% his compared to a guy who's paying low cost, let's call it 8 basis points through Vanguard. If they each invested $15,000 a year, starting from age 30, by the time they get to age 70, the guy at the 1.5% has half the portfolio as the guy in the low fee ETF. But it doesn't make any sense. The reporter said there's got to be something wrong with the math. How can 1.5%, which doesn't sound like much, cut my portfolio in half compared to the guy who's paying ultra low fees through Vanguard or BlackRock? And Jack Bogle, it was classic. He just chuckled. He goes, I know, I've seen this. You're not the first one. It's compounding. The eighth wonder of the world. It works for you, but it also works against you when you're paying these fees. You have to watch that Frontline documentary. And this just keeps perpetuating it. 80% of Americans, and Canadians are the same, have no clue what they're paying. And that's the way the financial industry wants to keep it. And even when you say, they're going to tell you, oh, it's only 1.5%. 1.5% over 30 or 40 years is costing you $500,000 for the typical guy. $500,000 is what's that shaving off your retirement. I know it doesn't sound legit. Watch PBS, watch that Frontline documentary, do a little homework on this stuff. Read up. Jack Bogle talks about it in several of his books, and Vanguard. It's incredible. But most people don't know, and it's costing them dearly. Final thing, I don't know when I'm going to publish this video, but as you guys know, last month I was saying, we're going to be due for a 5% correction in the S&P, and we've got that and then some. So I hope some of you guys have been buying the dips. I have. These come just like clockwork. Every 6-7 months we'll get a 5 to 10% pullback. Luckily I had a bit of dry powder, and I talked about it last month, was keeping some dry powder. But I'm always buying every month anyways, but I topped up on some Amazon, some Google, some Disney, some McCormick, some Estee Lauder, and some Blackstone, the private equity company. So, you buy on these dips, buy these good quality companies that I just named off, and hang on to them, and you're going to do incredible. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to all my new subscribers. Again, I want to thank everyone that's buying my book every month on Amazon, the Kindle version. Thanks to everyone with the nice comments and all the reviews on Amazon as well. See you next week.